Tonight, we delve into one of aviation's most significant modern crises, the Boeing 737 MAX. The Frontline documentary, Boeing's Fatal Flaw, provides a stark examination of the pressures and decisions that underpin two catastrophic crashes. Our analysis will lead with claims, supported by the patterns of evidence revealed, to understand how a company synonymous with aerospace excellence found itself at the center of a global safety scandal. We'll explore the systemic issues, the technical missteps, and the profound implications for air travel worldwide. This isn't just about a plane, it's about the very fabric of trust in a vital industry. Boeing once stood as an undisputed titan of aerospace engineering, a symbol of American ingenuity and safety. For decades, its aircraft set industry benchmarks, defining reliability and innovation. However, the 737 MAX saga has severely tarnished this reputation. The documentary meticulously charts a transformation within Boeing, suggesting a shift from an engineering-first culture to one increasingly driven by financial imperatives and shareholder value. This pivot, critics argue, laid the groundwork for the compromises that eventually led to tragedy. Understanding this cultural evolution is crucial to grasping the deeper roots of the crisis. At the heart of the 737 MAX technical issues lies the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, or MCAS. This software was introduced to compensate for the aircraft's larger, more forward-mounted engines, which altered its aerodynamic profile compared to previous 737 generations. Its purpose was to push the nose down automatically under specific conditions, mimicking the handling characteristics pilots were accustomed to. However, our analysis shows that MCAS was designed with fundamental flaws. It relied on a single angle of attack sensor, could activate repeatedly, and pilots were largely unaware of its full scope and power. This critical system, meant to enhance safety, became a fatal flaw. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 plunged into the Java Sea, killing all 189 people on board. This devastating crash served as the world's first tragic introduction to the 737 MAX vulnerabilities. Investigations quickly pointed to a faulty angle of attack sensor, which fed erroneous data to the MCAS, causing the system to repeatedly force the plane's nose down. Despite the crew's desperate attempts to regain control, they were fighting a system they barely knew existed, designed to override their commands. This incident was a dire warning, yet the full scope of the problem remained unaddressed, setting the stage for further tragedy. Just 5 months later, on March 10, 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed shortly after takeoff, claiming 157 lives. The similarities to the Lion Air disaster were chillingly apparent. Again, investigators found a faulty angle of attack sensor and repeated, uncommanded activation of MCAS. This second tragedy ignited global outrage and led to the immediate grounding of all 737 MAX aircraft worldwide, an unprecedented move in modern aviation history. The evidence was irrefutable. The MCAS design had a systemic flaw, and the failure to adequately address it after the first crash amplified the crisis exponentially, devastating countless families. The role of the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, in the 737 MAX certification process has come under intense scrutiny. The documentary details how the FAA, a global benchmark for aviation safety, increasingly delegated certification tasks to Boeing itself, a practice known as Organization Designation Authorization, ODA. Our analysis reveals that this self-certification model, driven by budget cuts and efficiency goals, inadvertently created a critical vulnerability. It allowed a complex, safety-critical system like MCAS to be certified with insufficient independent oversight, bypassing the rigorous checks expected from a regulatory body. This compromise in oversight proved catastrophic. Let's compare the traditional, robust regulatory oversight model with the increasingly delegated system that became prevalent at the FAA. Historically, regulatory bodies maintain stringent, independent control over all critical certification stages, ensuring unbiased evaluation. However, the ODA program shifted significant responsibilities to manufacturers. This comparison highlights a fundamental trade-off: speed and cost efficiency versus thorough, independent safety assurance. The 737 MAX crisis demonstrates the profound risks inherent in reducing external checks on complex systems, emphasizing that when it comes to passenger safety, the costs of lax oversight far outweigh any perceived short-term savings. Within Boeing, a palpable pressure cooker culture reportedly emerged, particularly during the development of the 737 MAX. The company was in fierce competition with Airbus's A320neo, needing a quick and cost-effective response. This intense rivalry, coupled with aggressive financial targets, reportedly pressured engineers to minimize changes to the existing 737 airframe, to avoid extensive pilot retraining requirements that would significantly increase airline costs and potentially deter sales. Whistleblowers and internal accounts suggest that concerns about MCOS were downplayed or ignored in the rush to market, painting a grim picture of priorities skewed away from safety. A critical aspect of the 737 MAX problematic development was the reliance on software modifications to address fundamental hardware changes. Instead of designing a completely new airframe for the larger engines, Boeing opted to use software like MCOS to maintain the older 737's flight characteristics. This decision was largely driven by the desire to avoid expensive and time-consuming recertification, and crucially, to bypass the need for extensive new pilot training on simulators. The belief was that software could seamlessly compensate for physical alterations, but the reality proved far more complex and dangerous. This approach underestimated the intricate interplay between software logic and aerodynamic reality. The speed of the 737 MAX certification process, especially compared to other complex aircraft, stands out in our analysis. While precise figures vary, evidence suggests a streamlined approach was prioritized to get the aircraft to market quickly. This efficiency, however, came at the expense of comprehensive scrutiny. The total time for critical safety reviews was reportedly compressed, pushing essential checks into a faster timeline than typically expected for a new variant with significant changes. This statistical observation supports the claim that the rush to market potentially compromised the thoroughness of safety assessments. A critical finding from both crash investigations was the profound lack of awareness among pilots regarding MCOS. Airlines and pilots were led to believe that the 737 MAX was essentially the same as previous 737 models, requiring only minimal, computer-based training rather than expensive and time-consuming simulator sessions. This decision, driven by Boeing's sales strategy and cost-saving promises to airlines, meant pilots were utterly unprepared for an MCOS malfunction. When faced with an uncommanded nose-down input, they lacked the knowledge and training to effectively counteract a system designed to override their manual controls. This created a dangerous gap in crew readiness. The Frontline documentary extensively features accounts from whistleblowers, former Boeing employees and engineers, who raised serious concerns about the 737 MAX development and the company's internal culture. These individuals courageously stepped forward, often at great personal risk, to reveal instances where safety protocols were allegedly bypassed, test data potentially manipulated, or concerns dismissed by management prioritizing schedule and cost. Their testimonies provide crucial insights into the internal environment, painting a picture of systemic issues where warnings from technical experts were not adequately addressed, highlighting a profound disconnect between frontline engineering and executive decision-making. The grounding of the 737 MAX incurred staggering financial costs for Boeing, its airline customers, and the broader aviation industry. Billions of dollars were lost in canceled orders, compensation to airlines, fines, and the sheer cost of storing and updating hundreds of grounded aircraft. Boeing's market value plummeted, and its once pristine brand equity was severely damaged. This segment highlights the immense economic consequences of prioritizing expediency over safety, demonstrating that the pursuit of short-term financial gains ultimately led to an unprecedented long-term fiscal catastrophe for the company. The price of fatal flaws proved astronomical. The human toll of the 737 MAX crashes is immeasurable, with 346 lives tragically lost across two incidents. This stark reality forces a difficult comparison: the cost of implementing a safer design versus the cost of human life and corporate reputation. Our analysis points to design decisions influenced by cost-saving measures, such as avoiding a new airframe or extensive pilot retraining. This trade-off, however, ultimately led to far greater costs, not only in billions of dollars but in the irreplaceable loss of hundreds of lives and enduring grief for their families. The documentary underscores that some costs should never be prioritized over safety. After a 20-month grounding, the 737 MAX eventually received recertification, but only after extensive software updates to MCAS, additional safeguards, and mandatory pilot training. The process involved rigorous new scrutiny from the FAA and international regulators, striving to restore public confidence. This period saw Boeing commit substantial resources to fixing the identified flaws, conducting numerous test flights, and implementing comprehensive training materials. While the aircraft is now flying again, the journey to recertification was a testament to the severity of the initial flaws and the immense effort required to regain even a semblance of trust from passengers and airlines worldwide. This was a painstaking process. Recertification was merely the first step on a very long road to restoring trust in Boeing and the 737 MAX. Airlines have faced the challenge of reassuring passengers, and Boeing continues to rebuild its reputation with customers and the public. The documentary implies that true recovery extends beyond technical fixes. It requires a fundamental shift in corporate culture back towards an unyielding commitment to safety and transparency. The perception of the 737 MAX may forever be linked to its tragic past, emphasizing that some wounds in public trust can take decades, if not generations, to fully heal. This ongoing journey is a crucial lesson. The 737 MAX crisis has had a ripple effect, prompting a re-evaluation of aviation safety standards and regulatory practices worldwide. Many national aviation authorities, which traditionally followed FAA lead, have asserted greater independence in their certification processes. There's a renewed emphasis on independent verification, transparent communication of system changes, and rigorous pilot training requirements across the board. This tragic chapter has undeniably reshaped the landscape of global aviation safety, hopefully fostering an environment where such catastrophic oversights are far less likely to occur. It's a painful lesson, but one that has catalyzed significant and necessary reforms. What are the overarching lessons from Boeing's 737 MAX crisis? Firstly, that financial pressures must never compromise safety. Secondly, independent regulatory oversight is indispensable and cannot be delegated without severe risk. Thirdly, transparent communication about design changes and pilot training is paramount. The FRONTLINE documentary serves as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance required in high-stakes industries, where innovation must always be tempered by an unwavering commitment to human life. Boeing's journey back to preeminence depends on its ability to truly internalize these lessons and demonstrate a profound, lasting change in its operational ethos. The world is watching. The story of the Boeing 737 MAX, as illuminated by Boeing's fatal flaw, stands as a grim warning to not just the aviation industry, but to all high-tech sectors. It illustrates the catastrophic consequences when corporate ambition outpaces engineering rigor and regulatory diligence. While the technical issues were eventually addressed, the deeper questions about corporate culture, regulatory capture, and the value placed on human life remain profoundly relevant. As air travel continues to grow, the lessons learned from this tragedy must be etched into the fabric of every decision, ensuring that the pursuit of progress never again comes at such an unbearable cost. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.